right, well, thank you for joining us again. I am now so excited to go to be the moderator for our panel of real talk, or honest talk, actually. Real talk, maybe better recommendation for next year. Real talk. So I am not going to introduce our panelists because I want them to introduce themselves and kind of just give a little bit of a story. I mean, Landi, we heard from you already, but let's have a, just a quick reminder of your name and kind of just what got you involved in the cause, a little, just a brief caregiver story about your loved one. And then we'll jump into a few questions. And these questions are fairly broad. They, might not resonate with all three of our panelists or with all of you. And we want to make this interactive. So if you have, questions or comments or thoughts throughout, feel free to, wave your hand and we can get you a mic. But we really want to share everyone's stories because we know that no one can share your story like you can. No one else can tell your story. It's unique to you, and the challenges that you face are unique to you and your loved ones. So again, thank you for being here, Miss Landi Maduro, Miss Keisha Hampton Williams, and Brandy Nunes. And Landi, go ahead.
Well, I am Landi Maduro. I am a writer, director, producer. I am the director of the film that we'll be seeing later, The Silent Killer. I did share a little bit of my story in regards to my dad and his prostate cancer journey, but funny enough, I got into prostate cancer because my filmmaking partner, Chris Edwards, was worried because his father and his brother had prostate cancer, and he knew he was at risk, but no one was talking about it. And so he thought, we should go to churches and, talk to men about prostate cancer. And I was like, that's great, but we should also follow men at different stages, because I felt like that human connection is where, people really, when they can see themselves represented on the screen. And so that's what we did. And then, as I said earlier, 6 months later, my dad got diagnosed, and it became very personal from there.
Thanks, Landi. Miss Keisha?
Hello, everyone. My name is Keisha Hampton Williams. I am from Detroit, Michigan. Excuse me, this is my first time in Chicago, so I am excited. I came to ZERO by way of fighting men, fighting cancer. My husband was diagnosed September 2019. I think it was a couple days before his 60th birthday. We were planning his 60th birthday party, and I knew he needed a support group. So I reached out, and from fighting men, fighting cancer, they connected me with ZERO, and it's been the best experience.
Thank you.
I love it. I feel like I'm the new person up here. Brandy Nunes, my husband was diagnosed August of 2022. We were just about 2 years into his prostate cancer journey. We actually found ZERO through my husband doing research, trying to find resources and support, which we did not have in our area. The closest support group is about 2 hours away, that's virtual, and he really wanted to find something in his own backyard. So ZERO we connected with in order to be able to have those resources and develop that family that we weren't finding in our own neighborhood. We attended Summit well, I say last year, but technically this year, February of this year, and that was absolutely wonderful to find a room full of people that could understand what we were going through and what that experience was like. And here we are now, and it's absolutely amazing. This nonprofit and the work that ZERO does, I cannot say thank you enough about, because seriously, it's given me this great support system of people and a whole slew of resources that I never knew existed for somebody that was going through a diagnosis.
Thank you, and thank you for those kind words. We are here for you, so we want to know what you need, because we have the flexibility and the resources to make it happen. So, that's why we talk a lot about sharing your story, and we know how difficult it is. But if we don't hear your story, we don't spread awareness, and we don't know how to help. So, thank you for being so vulnerable, and to everyone for sharing and opening up your heart and your mind and your arms, literally, to everyone here. So, so let's jump into the first question. So how has having your loved one be diagnosed with prostate cancer changed your outlook on life and on your relationships? And anyone can go, but we can, yeah, go,
Sure.
Go ahead, Brandy.
I'll go first. Everything. is a very broad answer, but it has changed everything. It changes how we engage with each other as spouses and how we communicate with each other, which open lines of communication we've had to really work on, because apparently we don't talk about our feelings as couples or as humans in general. But the communication piece has been really big. We've had to work on that a lot. And not just that, but giving each other grace and understanding emotions and all of these things. It has been a whirlwind trying to figure out how to navigate prostate cancer. And so to say if there's something in general that's changed, I mean, life, everything. The way that we look at the problems that we have and identifying how big or small that they are in comparison to what we've actually dealt with, and sharing our journey and information with other people, so they know that there are people that get diagnosed well before the age of 50 and that those resources are available. It literally has changed everything we do and how we look at every part of our lives.
Yep. Thank you. Ms. Keisha?
From my perspective, what I have learned over the years, we have to know when to give our spouse or our mate the space that they need. That's a big thing that I didn't understand. And they have different mood changes that go on, especially if they take the Eligard, the Lupron, depending on what's going on to help them through this prostate stage. So they have mood changes like us women that go through menopause. So if you have a person in the house that's going through menopause, the woman, and then the man is going through, I call menopause, I mean, you can clash. So you gotta know when to give your spouse that space. You gotta know how to talk to your spouse, and give them information. Ask if they need something from us. So like she said, life changes.
Yep. Thank you.
For me, it made me an advocate. I realized that what I could do was bigger than just within my family. And so not only did I get involved at ZERO, but I started joining other organizations and anything that I could do, because I didn't want to see another man feel like he had no options, or feel like he's the only one and there was no support. So I made it my business that whenever we screened our movie, we would have a counselor or someone there, someone from ZERO if we could, so they knew that there was some place they could go, and maybe a urologist. I just didn't want anyone to feel like that, because I knew the power that my father felt he had because he had knowledge. And so I wanted to make sure I provided that, not just for my dad, but for anyone else who was dealing with prostate cancer.
Thank you. So the next question is, what maybe caught you the most off guard throughout this, or what was the most unexpected piece that you had to navigate? Keisha, you may have answered that already with kind of understanding what, needing space, but were there any, other unexpected challenges that you really weren't anticipating?
Well, I can say that after my husband had the surgery, the robotic prostatectomy, that was really different. He came home with a catheter. So of course, we as women, we always want to help. What you need, what can I do, this. He didn't want any help. So I'm thinking he has a catheter in. Wow, that has to be painful. That has to be painful. So I'm trying to do all these things, and no, I don't need any help. Mm-hmm. So I just stepped back and let him go through what he had to go through. So
right. So you thought you maybe have a more active role, and then okay, maybe not.
Right, because that has to be different for a man, mm-hmm. To have that in them. And I think he had it in for, I don't know if it was 6 days, 2 weeks, okay. And so that had to be mind-boggling. Mm-hmm. So.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you were just talking in general about giving people space, and that was really hard for me, because my husband and I, we've been together for 24 years. We've worked together at probably 7 or 8 different companies. We own a business together. We are like this all the time, and it's hard for me to give someone space when you're used to being that close to them all the time. What was really difficult for me was knowing when to be present, really. And when I say that, it's like I'm always there, but the love and the emotional comfort I was trying to give wasn't very received. And so I had to identify when is he really struggling and when do I really need to step into that role when he's needing me to be there. Yeah. A lot of times I have to remember myself to ask him, like, one, how are you doing, but how can I support you today? Mm-hmm. because every day is a different day. I didn't have to do a lot of the research. He is a very data-driven guy, so he did a lot of that. But I will tell you, one of the biggest things that we've had to do, or not we had to do, but that we chose to do, was actually change our lifestyle and our diet. That's been a huge challenge that we've had to overcome with shifting our mindset about food and nutrition. Absolutely.
Yep. Thank you.
For me, I think it was a combination of things. One, respecting my dad's choices, but staying on his case. Because, you know, he did push me back a little bit when I said he needed to move on from the physicians that he was with. His urologist had been his doctor throughout his prostate cancer journey, and now we're almost 10 years in, but this doctor was not supporting this new phase of now also having pancreatic cancer. And so at first he was like, oh, I'm good. And I'm like, no, you're not, you know? So, you know, respecting certain choices, but kind of pushing on others until he saw, okay, I see what you mean now, but providing information so he understood. And then realizing it's possible that you could have 2 different cancers. That was the most shocking and disturbing thing. Here I thought, we're just dealing with this, and we're gonna figure it out, and he's gonna be okay, but when pancreatic cancer came, it felt like it came out of nowhere. And really being able to, you know, as a family, show him support and love, but also respect that this was a journey that he kind of had to do on his own, and all we could do was be that support system for him.
Yep. Yep. Thank you. And so we've talked a lot this weekend about self-care and taking care of the caregiver, caring for the caregiver, however we want to phrase it. We had the self-care fair last night with, you know, the therapy dogs and massage therapists, and hoping to, you know, pamper our amazing caregivers. So, and Brandy, you mentioned diet, so I'd love for you to expand on, you know, some of the changes you've made there. But what else have you, or you and your loved ones together, or you just individually, done to make sure that you're also taking care of yourself throughout this journey?
He stayed home this weekend. I mean, honestly, it's, as a caregiver, it's really difficult. I mean, in general, I do not prioritize my care, even if it wasn't for the cancer diagnosis or any of that. You know, I'm a type A personality, I'm a hustler, I'm always on the go, I do a lot of community and volunteer work. I do not take care of myself at all. I will absolutely admit that. Through his diagnosis, I have learned that I have to, because again, I can't pour into somebody else if I'm empty, right? It's the whole fill your own cup thing. And so one of the things that I have allowed myself to do is learn the boundaries really well, set them really well, and stop saying yes to everything that doesn't serve me. That's been very hard, because I'm a giver, and I'm always that person that says, yeah, I'll absolutely help. And knowing in the long term of things, it's probably something that's going to take away time from me doing other things I should be focused or working on. And so I've had to really respect my own energy in saying, no, I can't do that. No, I'm not going to do that. No, not today, because I can't constantly say yes to everything and then expect to be able to still give. And that's been very difficult.
And it's probably not just no to the person diagnosed. It's no to friends
Everything.
and family
Friends,
and work
family,
obligations.
all kinds of stuff. You have to learn what is going to best suit you at that time and say no to the things that are just not appropriate for that moment.
Yes. I think Brandy's my cousin, because that is totally me. But what I also learned about myself is that I'm a suppressor. And so I didn't know how upset I was, because I didn't allow myself to be upset. Until my sister said, you look like you are going to explode if one person says the wrong thing. And she was absolutely right. But I didn't even know it, because I was just moving and moving, and I was upset that people didn't feel as passionate about me, about making my dad happy, because this could be it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even understand what we're talking about. This is not up for discussion. I had just become total type A. This is what we're doing, right? And when she said that to me, it made me pause, but I still didn't stop until after his party was over and everything was done, and then I had no place to put all that energy. I had no, like, what am I supposed to do now? I need to be doing something. And my significant other at the time just made me stop, and he was like, what's wrong? And I was like, nothing's wrong. Everything's wrong, right? And I then finally said the words, my dad is dying. And I mean, the floodgates just opened, but it was the first time in all those years that I'd even said it, that I'd ever said it. So sometimes I think, you know, we're so busy caring for others that we, to your point, forget to take care of ourselves or don't even acknowledge our feelings. I hadn't acknowledged how I felt at all. And I think it's important to have people around us who can recognize the fight about the socks ain't really the fight about the socks.
Right.
Right? And that they can see through us and see that, okay, you're hurting and you need some support.
It is 100% okay to be a dumpster fire, right? It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay for you to share that with people because they don't know to support you if you don't express it.
And the thing that I've learned is they can lash out at us, like you said. It's not really about the socks. We don't know what it's about. I personally take it personal, so I'm like, what did I do? I didn't do anything but walk in the house, and I'm lashed out at. So I take it personal, and I go to myself, and I may cry, I may read the Bible, or I may go get up and exercise. So for myself, I try to, I'm not consistent, get exercise to help my mental, because our mental is so important as a caregiver as well as the prostate cancer survivor. We have to take care of ourselves. And my emotions show in my face. So if I'm upset, everyone can see it.
Yeah.
So I'm working on doing better with being a caregiver, taking care of me, and what happens is he will see me taking care of me, then he'll be like, well, I'm gonna go walk with you, or I'm gonna go jog with you. So it helps the relationship with whatever we're going through, but the mental is so important.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was just going to say, I love that you brought that up because this morning, if you guys were here for the very first session, she had us write down a question or a statement. I wrote down, don't take it personal, right?
So for advice for other caregivers, right?
Give yourself and your partner grace through the entire process, because there's going to be days they're going through stuff and they're going to lash out at you and you're going to have to just take it. And then there's days your emotions are going to bundle up because you stuff them way, way, way down, and then you're going to lash out at them when they don't deserve it. It goes both ways. You have to give yourself grace and you have to not take it personal.
Yep. And Keisha, don't let your face say what your mouth didn't.
And you are so right. I am working on that. And my husband says to me, he'll say to me, you know, we as women, I mean, we can keep it 100. We like attention. I know I like attention. So so whatever may be going on, I may have had a bad day at work, or who knows, somebody might have been driving crazy in traffic. So I'll come home, I want a hug, but I don't ask for a hug. I expect for him to know that I want this hug. So, you know, and so then I'm like, he know I need a hug, but why he didn't give me this hug? So it's stuff like that.
Thank you. So we talked, you mentioned the catheter. We've talked about this weekend having those hard conversations with your loved one about giving space, but not too much space, and being present, but not too present, and how I think some of the sexual health comments yesterday evening were kind of related to, you know, how can I make sure that you feel loved and like you're enough? And that if you're, you know, if you're worrying about yourself as the patient, you know, am I enough, or am I doing enough, or what is this diagnosis doing to me and my family? What are some ways that, or some tips or things you've said or done to try to help your loved one who's been diagnosed kind of maintain that dignity and that sense of pride when they might be kind of feeling at their lowest? It's a hard one. I know. I know. I don't mean to stump you.
Let me say this. Men can be stubborn. So,
She said, say it one more time.
louder for the people in the back. So, I can tell when my husband is going through something. He is a TV movie watcher. So when he's constantly tuned into whatever, the news, the movies, whatever's going on TV, I'm like, okay, he's going through something. When do I approach it? Sometimes I may approach it, whatever is on his mind, I'm approaching it at the time where he's gonna lash out. So then I'll say, well, you know, you wanna talk about it? I've learned though, he's gonna talk about it to me when he's ready. I'm learning every day on how to deal with it. So, but it's getting a lot better, but men are stubborn.
Round of applause for the most stubborn man.
He's owning it.
I would say it's really hard to, especially when it comes to sexual health, to maintain dignity, right? When my husband got diagnosed, he was really, really scared and worried about doing the prostatectomy, like a lot of men in the room have done and experienced, you know, issues afterwards. We chose not to go that route. We chose a different treatment, and we're very grateful that we did. But it's really hard to assure someone that your relationship is more than just intercourse. Because for men, it's very, very important, right? And I kept trying to tell my husband, you know, it's like, I don't care what happens in the future, if that's the path we go down, like, none of that matters to me. Like, you're my best friend, you're the person I want with me by my side until I am dead, and I am definitely gonna go before you. So don't even think you're checking out just yet, right? But it became where I had to be very good about asking questions at the right times, right? Because we knew that that was something that we would address if it was a concern, which thankfully we haven't had to, but it still weighed on him very heavy. And so I think you have to be careful of when to approach conversations with people and ask the right things at the right time, because a lot of times I would bring up questions and it may feel like he was being attacked. You know, like, I have all these things weighing on me and I have all these questions in my mind and I'm scared and I want you to feel that and I want you to resonate with that and have a conversation with me about it, and it's not the time. Right? So you have to be really good about respecting when you're going to engage in those difficult conversations, whether it's about emotions or sexuality or any of those things, the treatments, the surgery, the medications, all of those, to allow them to process and feel what they need to feel, but then let them know that you're still there to support along the way without stepping too much in the way of their decisions, because ultimately it is their decision on what they want to do. Right? I can obviously guide and coach and give my feedback. But I think that's where it really comes into play with making sure that they feel honored, and dignity is, it's got to be their idea, it's got to be their choice. As the spouse, all you can do really is support it, and don't Gatling gun them and ask them all the questions. Let them kind of come to that on their own and just support as much as you can.
Yeah, and Landi, I know you mentioned kind of helping your dad be pushed to make independent decisions. So, you know, I kind of want to lump that, you know, maintaining that independence in with this dignity conversation. And I would love to hear from you, you know, because we're not talking about sexual health in your case, but would you mind sharing another, you know, or the same example even, on just how you could help your father maintain that independent attitude, and that I do have some onus over this, and I'm going to make the decisions, and I'm going to be the final decision maker?
Yeah, I mean, my dad is probably the most optimistic person on the face of the planet. Like, he jokes he's going to live to 100 and outlive all of us. And he comes from this place of hope first, which I think is beautiful and probably contributing to why he's still here. But in the same token, what I've really tried to do is give him factual information and back it up with, you know, statistical information and questions that he can ask his doctor. And of course, my stepmother is very much involved, so giving the information to both of them, because like I said, he lives in a world of rainbows and butterflies, so if I say it, it's like, do-do-do, right? And then I say it to my stepmom, I got it, it's cool, I got it, right? So there has to be this balance, but I think because of that, he has come to lean on us. I notice when he can't take it though, he does kind of go in his shell. And I realize, oh, he's processing. Let him process. Because he'll take a few days and then he'll call me and he's like, okay, I thought about what you said and I prayed on it and I'm good now. All right, I want to execute X, Y, and Z. But at first he's like, oh, no, it's fine, I don't need to do all that. So understanding, in a way, that can also be a defense mechanism of I don't really want to deal with it, so I'm going to pretend that everything's beautiful. and then once you kind of say, can we look at everything though, then he'll take his time, process, and come back with, okay, I understand what you're saying now, and let's look at what I can do.
Yeah, thank you.
I have one more
Yeah,
thing to
please.
say, because
Yeah.
this is sort of on sexual health.
Yes, it is.
Okay. So, well, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So I remember my husband kept trying to push me away. At the time he was diagnosed, I was his girlfriend. And we were together all the time. We were living in separate places. But he kept trying to push me away. He was like, well, I don't know how this is going to be after the surgery. You might want to go live your life, meet somebody that can A, B, C, D. So I'm like, why is he trying to push me away? Is it somebody else? Like what? I mean, I didn't know what to think. So he said it often. So one day we were eating, sitting at the dining room table, and he said it again, like, well, I just don't know if this is something you want to do. I don't know how I'm going to be. I don't know, as he called it, my chicken. I don't know if my chicken is going to work again. So I was like, well, this is not about the sex part. I'm with you. I'm going to support you. I'm going to be by your side. I'm going to be with you. I've been here. I'm here to stay. And that's what I did. I chose to stay, and we fight it out, and we make it happen. We get the information, and everything is good. I mean, it started back. I mean, not trying to put his business out there, but I mean, everything.
Congratulations.
He
chicken-
was.
The chicken was fine.
So he was, he was really worried about that. So everything turned out,
Right.
I'd say every man's probably worried about that
Yeah,
that's in this room,
absolutely.
right?
And you hate to, kind of make everything about the differences in gender and the stereotypical kind of gender norms, but, we are kind of raised being told, like, a man is a man and they're tough and they're strong and they don't need any help and all the things, and yeah, they do, right? We all do, we're humans. So yeah, thank you for sharing and thank you. Letting us share.
I can definitely say I've never felt closer to my husband than when he's being vulnerable.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
So men,
Yeah,
don't always
absolutely.
be strong, okay?
Absolutely.
It's okay to share that weakness.
Well, thank you. So we've talked about a lot of tips and conversations and vulnerable challenges that we've had. So let's jump to healthcare providers. So what are some things, maybe you've done them, maybe you wish you had said them or taken action on to help providers be better providers and have better patient-physician communication or patient-caregiver-physician communication? So anything that you've done or wish you would have done throughout this experience that could have made your loved one's care better?
Well, we actually have our nurse here. Tamika. Can you stand, Tamika?
Where's Tamika?
Tamika.
Hi, Tamika.
So this is my husband's nurse. She has really, really, really been helpful and wrapped her arms around us from the beginning. He was nervous. Tamika, I tell you, Tamika has been wonderful. And Dr. Shock, which was the physician. So Dr. Shock wasn't who did the actual surgery, but that was the doctor he was seeing. And healthcare providers is so important to build a relationship, like they said earlier, with the nurse. And Tamika, I give her 100%.
So what are some of those characteristics that Tamika has that are just so valued?
Well, she talked to him about being a prostate cancer survivor, the things that he may be feeling, thinking. If he had any questions, he could reach out, and he did just that. Then when she met me as a caregiver, she talked to me about how I should feel or if I have any questions. So on both sides, she really helped us out.
Great, thank you. Go ahead. Thank you, Tamika.
I feel, sometimes Just generally speaking, specifically for African Americans, sometimes you can feel like that there's this bias towards us, and that a lot of times we're skipped over, or we'll go see a doctor and we're rushed through this process. And I know that's kind of the state of medicine in general, but I know that is a huge thing for a lot of African Americans, is feeling like the doctor's not recognizing my cultural difference and the requirements that I have as a person. And I want to touch on that only because I know, I told the story earlier of how my father's urologist basically told him to accept the time that he had left. But he was basing that on an unconscious bias that he had. Not because he's a bad physician, but because his father had pancreatic cancer, had surgery, and had a bad outcome. And so sometimes we're quick to think that these biases are based on race, and sometimes they are, let's be honest.
There's
but sometimes
data to back that up.
right, like I'm not negating that at all, but sometimes it's also based on personal issues because they're also human. And even though in that moment I knew, because he told the story, him and my father had a rapport. He's in the movie, right? The doctor was kind enough to be in the movie. Him and my father had a rapport. But in that moment, he was no longer looking at my father as an individual. He was looking at him based on the lens of what he experienced as a human when he knew someone personally who had pancreatic cancer and had a bad outcome. And so I think this is why it's so important for us to advocate for ourselves, for us to understand more about what is being diagnosed for our loved ones and ourselves, for us to do the research, because doctors practice medicine. And sometimes when you are rushed through an appointment, or you don't get all the information, or you leave feeling inadequate, it could be because they're human. It could be because they see you as less than. We don't know. But if you walk in educated, right, with questions, doesn't mean you have to know everything, but enough to ask questions that when it doesn't resonate with you, you can say, you know what, I'm not sure this is the right physician for me, right? Or if you tell them your concerns and you're not getting answers. One quick thing, my brother, I was just talking to someone about this earlier. Now we know he's got a strong possibility of having prostate cancer, right? My father has prostate cancer, and my uncle ended up on my mom's side prostate cancer. His primary physician told him he didn't need a PSA, and even though my brother never had one, right? And so my brother steps out and calls me. This doctor is saying, and the doctor heard him in the hallway and was like, who are you talking to? My sister, she did a film and did it. And the doctor's like, oh, well, if you really want one, I'll do it. It shouldn't have taken that, right? That's not the right doctor for him. So this is why it's so important what you guys do as caregivers, and I know it's hard. You're trying to get all that terminology and learn everything, and you don't have all the answers either. You're just trying to be there to be supportive. But the role you play is so imperative. Even if you don't know it all, going and asking someone who does, contacting someone at ZERO and getting those questions, it's so imperative. Because sometimes there is bias, and sometimes that bias is based on personal experience, not just cultural differences. And I just wanted to put that out there.
No, great point. Thank you.
Kind of like Landi was saying, the whole advocacy part, right? Not just your significant other and them advocating for themselves, but you as the person going through the journey with them side by side. The first thing we did was fire the doctor that diagnosed my husband, because he did not give us any information on the things that we wanted to hear. It was pretty much, yes, it's cancer, we're going to cut it out, and we'll see you in 3 months, let's get it on the schedule. Well, wait a minute, are there other options? It's still contained. The doctor, we had this conversation earlier, it's kind of like, the baker's going to bake, the butcher's going to butch, he's a surgeon by trade. He is not going to offer any other suggestions. His words were, well, yeah, if you want a second opinion, you can go get one.
Oh.
And that was it. No guidance, no resources, no nothing, right? So advocating for yourself is huge, and not just going with whatever the doctor says. Like, as a consumer, you have to be smart, you have to do your own research, make sure that the person that you're seeing is actually going to give you the outcome that you want. My husband was very worried about erectile dysfunction after treatment and everything else, and he was like, I am not doing this traditional surgery. It's one of those things that until you start doing the research, you don't know what's out there. There are 9 different ways to treat prostate cancer. And why are we all getting like the same thing done and putting everybody in a box, right? It's not fair. right? Like medical providers get into the industry because they have the want to care for people, and then sadly insurance gets in the way and tells them what they can or can't do, what boxes they have to check first, where you can or can't go. You need to advocate for yourself. We just had a client of ours, my husband and I actually work in the healthcare space. We sell health insurance. We have a health insurance agency. So we help people navigate this stuff all the time. And being a patient, wow, that's a whole experience when you're doing it. But we had a client that came to us for guidance. They knew that my husband had been diagnosed and called for, hey, here's some, what do you think? It's like, well, we can't give you medical advice, but here's a doctor we saw. And we referred him over to them, and they are moving forward with that physician because he's able to offer treatments that are non-invasive, that the healing time and the recovery is very, very quick. That treatment's not for everyone, but it is going to cost them less paying for it out of pocket than it would have been going through their insurance. And it was a much better solution for that person. So you have to know what's out there. Don't just sit in the room and just take the doctor's advice and, walk away. If you're not getting the answers that you want, you absolutely need to speak up, not just as the patient, but as the spouse, and let them know that this is not okay. And it's okay to go somewhere else if you choose to, right? But it's your life, and it's the quality of life you're gonna live afterwards that you should be advocating for. Yeah. So don't just listen to the doctor in the medical field. Like, you should know really what's best for you, and you should use their information accordingly to make that decision.
Right.
And really quick, don't be afraid if they're using terminology that's 10 feet above your head. Right? My dad would be like, you can break it down to me like I'm 5, or should I get some crayons? Because I don't know what you're talking about. So I need you to explain this to me so that I can understand. And you have nothing to be embarrassed about. This is your health. This is your loved one's health. So if it means I need plain English, then that is totally fine for you to say.
Yeah, so, and I think we talk a lot at Zero about it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving. Absolutely. And so, I've been diagnosed, and your concern as my provider is to save my life. Yes. But sounds like, I don't want to put words in anyone's mouths, but some helpful advice might be, that's important, but it might not be what's on the top of my list, actually. Maybe it is, I want to maintain my sexual function, or I am concerned about fertility, or all of these other, pieces of my life that matter, and I want to live. But there's still a lot of onus on you as a caregiver and on the patient. And so any other pieces, I love all of the advice so far. Any last pieces of advice how providers can kind of be better communicators, plain language, stop with the acronyms, draw me a little picture, let me see that walnut on that little piece of paper, show me all the, all the body parts so I know what's happening. If we don't have any final comments, I think we can take a few questions or comments. Yeah? All right, well, first of all, let's give our amazing panelists a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you all. And any comments, questions, they can, I think if we would rather not answer, we'll just say I'd rather not answer. But yeah, all right. Thanks, Jeremy.
I'm coming. Wait, Phil. Okay.
Maybe look up a lot.
I would just like to know more about your diet change and what you did and everything.
I know, that was by far like the hardest thing, right, was changing lifestyle. So my husband, he's a data guy, did a lot of research on diet, nutrition. I know Zero's talked about this in some of their education in the past. We did go plant-based. We stopped eating meat, we stopped eating dairy, which is extremely hard because, I'm a Texas girl. I grew up on beef and tacos and all that stuff, right? Like, I love food. But we also know that for his longevity and health overall, that we need to probably eliminate some of those things from our diet. I'm not saying you have to, by all means, eliminate all the things, right? Because, sure, if you want to do grass-fed beef and all that, that's fine. But we chose to go completely plant-based. We still use honey, so we don't use the term vegan a whole lot. So it has made a huge difference. I will tell you, I sleep better. I lost about 25 pounds. My cholesterol, my LDL looks great. All of my labs are outstanding, and they look better than what they did before I changed my lifestyle. So that has been really hard because, you know, when you first get diagnosed and you're like, okay, cool, I'm gonna make dinner and not put protein in it. Like, I didn't grow up eating tofu and tempeh and all that kind of stuff. Like, I'm like, what is that? That's weird. So that was a big change because I had to learn everything. Like, how am I gonna cook? How do I make tacos without put beef in it or chicken in it or whatever? And there's all kinds of stuff that you can do. Like they were saying yesterday, there's a lot of good nutrition in plant-based protein. And so changing the diet was a lot of work. I'm still learning constantly, but I do encourage anyone, if you're having issues in your body and you're experiencing things like inflammation and pain and all of those, if you've never done an elimination diet, which pretty much means you eliminate the things that are really common and inflammatory meals and food items, and then you reintroduce those slowly over time, you'll see how your body reacts. But again, I can't give you any nutrition, you know, information necessarily. I'm not a nutritionist, but I can tell you there is research and data that shows that dairy can help fuel prostate cancer, sugar helps grow it, we all know that. And if you look at, you know, the things like the World Health Organization and the level 1 carcinogens that are meats and all that stuff. Here's the thing, we know what we eat is bad for us. Most of us don't care because we can't make the choice of nutrition over like flavor and taste, right? Like I could go eat this salad or I could go eat this nice piece of lemon cake, right? I have to make, you're laughing, I have to make that choice, right? Dick's like, yes, I know. It is difficult, but I would highly recommend it. Do your research, look at the studies that are out there. Plant-based diet, it sounds crazy. I have a lot of people that are like, what do you even eat? I eat lots of stuff, man. I mean, trust me, we eat lots of good food. But it is a learning experience. You know, when you cook your whole life, then all of a sudden now you're like, oh, I got to take out 70% of the stuff I used to cook. You got to learn everything over again. YouTube and Pinterest are definitely your friends. I'll say that. Yeah. But I love ethnic food, so you know you can do all kinds of great stuff. But most of us are used to like what we call the SAD, standard American diet, right? Hot dog, hamburger, pizza, like all the super easy convenience foods. Get creative. Like some of the best meals I've ever had are things that didn't have plants in it. My whole family came to visit in August, and I made plant-based meals the whole time they were here, and my brother was blown away. He was like, this is crazy, because this tastes really good. You just gotta know what to put in it. But yeah, absolutely, we changed ours 2 years ago, and I honestly don't think I will ever go back. The one or two times I have accidentally consumed some dairy, I absolutely knew that I did. Like, I could feel it, so. Not that I tell everybody to go eat plants, but go eat plants.
All right.
I just wanted to say that my husband is a very quiet man and laid back. And so when he actually had his hormone therapy, he'll get a little very depressed, wouldn't say anything, and I'll come in, how you doing? What do you think how you think I feel? So I said, I prayed, I said, I got to do something about this. I got to get him out of this dump, you know. And I know having cancer and the whole 9 yards was it's a big thing in your life. So the grandchildren had bought him a chair, so he'll sit there and just have on TV like your husband, and you know, you come in. So I said, I'm gonna do something else. We're a blues and jazz couple. So we go to all the blues and jazz, wherever. We go all over. We've been here, St. Louis, we hit all of them. And with some other friends, and so I said, I'm gonna do something. So I went in and I got some tickets for Bonnie James. Yes, I did, and I brought he wears hats and, you know, some suits, and then I came in and I had on Mary J. I just wanna be happy. Go ahead. And I put that music on, you know, and he said, what is this? I said, Bonnie James, baby, Bonnie James. And you know what? That brought my husband the activities out of his rut. Now, he just called me yesterday and said he got tickets for Tim Cunningham. He said, baby, I got tickets for Tim Cunningham. I said, what? Yeah, we're going there. So if there's an activity that they really want to do, my husband loves jazz and blues. We go to all of them all over. That got him out that rut. And he been going to them and, you know, and said, you know what, I'm glad you told me. We went to the outside events where they had the outside, you know, blues and jazz, and something maybe a favorite thing that your husband or, you know, loved one like to do. And I put that music and I started dancing, and he said, all right, go on, we're going. And so that's all I'm saying. Sometimes, you know,
that's amazing. That's really amazing.
You got to fill their cup too, right? Just as much as you fill yours. They need those outlets too.
Hi, my question is, when you were going through the journey with your spouses, were there any caregiver support groups available to you? If so, what did you get out of it? If not, do you think it would have been very beneficial to you?
So for myself, once again, joining ZERO has been the best thing for us. I reached out to Renee, and I was venting to her about some things I was going through, and she said, we have a caregiver support group. I'm going to connect you with another caregiver that's going through similar situation. And she connected me with a lady out of, I think she's out of Dallas, Texas. And we talked on the phone. She was venting, I was venting. She gave me some encouraging information. I gave her some, and we became good buddies. I saw her at the summit one year, and we met face to face. So it really helped uplift my spirit during that time. So there is a caregiver support group under ZERO.
Yeah, we didn't have any resources in our area at all for him or for me. So that was a big deal. And ZERO, like you were saying, has been crucial in having that support. We went to Summit back in February this year, and it was the first time I had met women who had spouses that were survivors, that had already been through cancer, were thriving after cancer and things like that. And that was very eye-opening for me, because when my husband got diagnosed, of course, the minute, the first thing that popped in my head was, oh, he's gonna die on me, right? Like, that's scary. And so it really was nice to meet other women that were like, look, man, you're not alone. You're in this together. Everybody's journey is different. We're all gonna experience different stuff. But those women I met one day, and they are family to me now.
Exactly.
I can call them and ask them questions.
I can second that.
ZERO is absolutely been outstanding in connecting us with people that get what we're going through. Even my friends, my family, none of them back home get it. No one understands it at all. I'm the only friend that has anybody that they love that's going through cancer right now, and so it is very important to have somebody that you can call and say, hey, I'm not having a good day today, you got a few minutes, right, and have them lift you up. And you're not gonna find anyone else that understands it unless you connect with somebody that understands it, and I would absolutely use ZERO's resources for that, because that's exactly why they're here.
Right. Yes.
Right. Cool.
I just wanted to make a comment about somebody up there mentioned menopause and menopause. And of course, both of those are related because they're hormonal disorders.
Yes.
The difference to me is typically when women go through menopause, it takes some period of time for that to all occur. So you get a chance to adapt a little bit as that happens. With menopause, when they give you that first shot of Lupron or that first shot of Eligard, the change is almost instantly. It's just like flipping a switch. So for a man, it's real easy to slip into depression right away just because of the shock to the system that happens so fast. So all I can say to that is it takes a little more understanding sometimes when you're dealing with that instantaneous menopause.
Add that to the medical books. Menopause is an official term. Yep.
Oh boy.
Take that away from him.
I'm going to be nice. I'm going to be nice. But I'm going to piggyback on that menopause and menopause. What's happening is the instant light switch. My nurse is here with the needle in the back of her back for the shot for the menopause. When I left the office, I instantly changed my whole persona and couldn't help it. I didn't want to be bothered. I just clammed up in a shell. TV, I'm a TV watcher. I must have watched all series just so I could tune my mind out of the depression that I had. Mental illness plays such a major role with this. It's a lot of people that go through the fact of the men that haven't been diagnosed. They don't know what's wrong with them. They're pushing away from their women because it's embarrassing to get to a point where how you get to the good part and you can't perform. So I'm not going to pursue anything. I may look good or may go after that, but I'm not going after it. And a lot of people don't understand erectile dysfunction has such a major part with that. It may not be cancer, but if you're not discharging your urine, you can create all kind of bacterias, and that's just as bad as having the prostate cancer. So if you got anyone at home, and if they're at the age of 45 and 50, especially if they got a history, they gotta go get checked.
But yeah.
Because it could be a million things. Plus, I saw the video that Lonnie had, the fact of one of the doctors say, well, they always check from the bottom, but what about the top? And by the time they get to the top, it's too late. So just so we get to the men, and you got to find the conversation to get to them, even as they're young, because if they don't have kids, that's even bad. Oh my God. I'm gonna let y'all go with this one. I'll get to crying and whatnot,
I just want to piggyback off what he said. So we found out if a family member has prostate cancer, that daughter or some family member on the female side can get prostate cancer. It's a correlation with that. And breast cancer, breast cancer. I think we found that out at the summit. Or ovarian cancer, I didn't know that. So also let the young ladies know. I know my husband told his daughters to go get checked for breast cancer, but we do know a young lady, her father has prostate cancer now, and she has breast cancer. So that's something important to know as well.
And just to add to that, so because my uncle had renal cancer, there's a lot of cancer on my dad's side. My dad's parents died of cancer, which at this point I can't even remember what they had. And then now my dad having both prostate and pancreatic cancer, they recommended that we do genetic testing. And it turned out my dad has Lynch syndrome, which made him prone to have colorectal cancer and all these other cancers. Thankfully, me and my sister, we both decided we wanted to know, because they said the same thing, that now we know we're 50-50 chance we could have breast cancer or ovarian cancer. Luckily, I don't have Lynch syndrome and she doesn't, but it's interesting, the men in my family refuse to do the genetic testing. And so, I think there's still this interesting stigma because it's still not a lot of information being spoken about it, but doing that testing is so important to your point of, now knowing, it's not just my sons and brothers and uncles I have to worry about, it's my daughters and nieces too. And having that information, again, it can so help you. Doesn't mean you have to do anything, right? Doesn't mean just because you carry this gene, you immediately have to have, surgery. But again, it's this powerful information that allows you to make a decision based on what's best for your health. But now you have the knowledge, and it's not, oh, I'm so sorry, you now have stage 4 breast cancer. You have this knowledge in advance.
I just wanted,
Go ahead, sorry.
I just wanted to add to that because we had gone to Mayo Clinic and they offered us different options and never talked at all about genetic testing. And the first visit, we went to the oncologist. I think he suspected it. Something was going on because my husband was a pretty low PSA score and Gleason 9. And so we did the testing, and he turned out to have a probably 2 gene mutation, which is related to the BRCA2, but much more rare. Not only then did we find out and, talked with my daughter about testing, because she had a 50% chance of having that mutation, it totally changed the direction of the treatment that they will do in the future. It totally drove the treatment direction. So I think a lot of people don't understand that for some mutations, the treatment will define the treatment for him. And it will totally define the treatment for him in the future. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, great point. And Landi used my second favorite S word, stigma. There's so much stigma around mental health, around talking about your personal health care with anyone. There are cultural differences and stigmas, and talking about not only a diagnosis with the men in your life, but also the women. And to your point, even genetic testing, I think knowing that information or not knowing there's a stigma there, and so we're trying to break down all of these stigmas of, getting a PSA test, learning whether or not a digital rectal exam is warranted and necessary for you. There is not a blanket diagnostic plan and treatment plan. We talked about, the treatment plan. There is no blanket treatment plan, but the results can help guide what is available for you and what may work better for you. And so there's just so many walls we're all trying to break down, and again, just by kind of sharing your stories and talking about it, we're gonna start getting there. We're gonna start breaking down that stigma.
We have to normalize the conversation. I say that all the time. When my husband got diagnosed, we found out that his grandfather had died from prostate cancer, and no one ever had that conversation with us. We just knew Grandpa died from cancer. It's very important to know your family history, and it doesn't have to be the same kind of cancer.
Right.
So have those conversations with your families and with your kids. It's very important.
And I'm sorry. And my brother-in-law just passed a couple weeks ago. Cece's oldest brother passed. We didn't know that he had prostate cancer. He was a very private person. And then one day, he called Cece and they were talking about it. He said, I think he was joking. I'm not really for sure. I think he said his PSA was like 80. I don't know, it was high. But he was 78 years old. And he was a person that really wasn't gonna do anything about it. And Cece kept telling him, no, you need to do something, but they couldn't remove it because of his age. But he ended up passing away. And he had another brother that passed away of prostate cancer. So that family history is so important.
Sorry, one more time. Then don't lose your train of thought. I meant to say this earlier. I apologize for stealing the microphone for the people you want to hear from. There is so much benefit and value in talking to a genetic counselor. You don't have to move forward with having genetic testing done, but the genetic counselor, a professional, can talk to you and your loved ones about the pros and the cons and what the information means and also doesn't mean. So there are a lot of pros to having the information. You cannot make an informed decision without all of the information. Yes.
And just to add to that, but that wasn't what I wanted to say, but the one thing I will say in regards to the genetic testing too is, when we did it, there were some things that they didn't know yet because they were telling us we're still learning, so they're like, you have these two things, we don't know what they mean yet, we're still learning. And then literally 2 years later, the genetic counselor called me and said, we now know what that means. And I was like, what are you talking, I have forgotten. And she's like, I just wanted you to know it was fine. Great, I don't even know what it was, but that's great. So they're keeping record, and so as technology advances, as medicine advances, they're still looking at your genetic testing to see, is there new things we now know that we can tell you about so you're aware of as technology advances, which I thought was amazing that 2 years after having that test, they're now telling me, I'm still good, thank God, but just want to share that. I did want to touch on one thing that Cece and both Shelby said in regards to your mental state, because, and I don't think he'll mind me sharing this, but David Moffitt is an awesome person who runs a nonprofit in Atlanta, Georgia. And he really brought into my mind in regards to veterans or those who work in the police force or firefighters, those who have these jobs that are already mentally taxing, and how being diagnosed with prostate cancer can trigger PTSD. And I think that, if you have a loved one who maybe is a veteran or, worked in any kind of stressful job that we know they deal with things that they can't share already, and now you're adding prostate cancer and attacks on what they may feel is their manlyhood, that's a place that's really hard to navigate. And they may not be able to share any of that with you because they don't know how. They've been trained not to share stuff with you. So now you're talking about sharing this very personal experience. Doesn't mean they don't love you, they just don't know how. So I think that takes just a whole different level of patience, and why support groups and things like what ZERO offers is super important. And also finding support groups for people like that or men like that who have prostate cancer that understand that specific niche, because it is different. It's a whole different level of dealing with your mental status.
Thank you. I think we're out of time. I just want to, I'm sorry. Oh,
I
sorry.
did have one question. So you guys
that's
talked
fine.
about genetic testing, like if you have that in your family, right? But what if you don't know what your family history is? So for example, my husband, his mom was adopted and he doesn't know his biological father. Would they give him, could he still get genetic testing even though he doesn't have any family history? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, he could. Insurance usually won't cover it if that's the case, because, I mean, if you're high risk, like, hey, I'm a female, my family has breast cancer history, I'm high risk, a lot of times, if you are, and you can prove that, they will cover genetic testing. A lot of times, insurance does not. So here's what I would tell you. It is 100% worth it, in my opinion, to pay out of pocket if it is going to better your information to care for yourself in the future. So if you want to spend $5,000 and do genetic testing, do I encourage it? Absolutely, because you don't know what your health concerns are going to be down the road if you don't learn today what they can be. I have a good girlfriend of mine that she has zero family history of cancer. She did the genetic counseling or the genetic testing, and she came back with Lynch syndrome. And so now she's very high risk, and she had to have a hysterectomy done and some other things like that to prevent issues down the road. It is very important to know what your history is, period, wherever you can get that information. And sometimes you do have to pay for it out of pocket, but I think it's absolutely worth it.
And a genetic counselor, especially, especially if you're connected to a larger academic medical center, they can likely help navigate any financial issues. We also have a program called ZERO+1. You do technically have to have a prostate cancer diagnosis to use that service, but they are very aware and in tune with various resources that can help, help with that navigation. So thank you all. Thank you to our panelists, Landi, Keisha,
Thank you
Brandy. Thank you for all of your questions.